I believe I have finally seen all the movies from 2021 that I am going to see. Which means before we can fully look forward and embrace the possibilities of a new year, we must first look back and examine the year that was in reviews. So it is time for Drive Home Reviews End of the Year Roundup, where I look at the year that was and determine what was the best, what was the worst, and what was kind of in between. So, as is tradition, I like to start off with the bad things and work our way up, because there were some colossal turds going on this year. So here it is. Let's jump right in and take a look at my top 10 worst films of 2021. Here we go.
You blew it! You had it all and you blew it! Listen to that video crowd. They hate you!
Number 10. Blithe Spirit. Look, I have no objection to modern takes on classic forms of literature. I really, really don't. You need to do that from time to time to keep these things fresh, and especially with a classic of the stage like this play is, it needs to be reinterpreted and looked at with fresh eyes. So, on the surface, I have no issue with it. I don't even really have an issue with them stretching out Judi Dench's part to seemingly no other purpose than to make sure she had more screen time, like she needs it. She's not trying to qualify for a SAG card here. What I have an objection to is that if you're going to do this, you damn well, A, better have something interesting or important to say with it, or B, not completely fucking miss the point of the product, which this movie does. The only thing that keeps this from being higher on the list is that it is far too forgettable to stay mad at for very long. Number 9. The Matrix Resurrections. So, one of the popular trends we had this year were these, for lack of better terminology, let's call them fan service films. These movies of older properties, or that acknowledge older properties, that seem to exist to give fans of said properties one more hurrah, one more reason to stand up and cheer. And for the most part, these films were actually very, very well done. The one where it falters is this one. The Matrix returns to theaters looking so very tired and bored and just not even sure what it's doing there. So what we're left with is a film with seemingly nothing to say outside of, boy, Generation X can still fight, which, I mean, yeah, we can. We're still pretty awesome. But, folks, it's about time we stopped pounding our chests. We had our day. Yes, we were pretty awesome. But, you know what? It's a new day. It's a new dawn. It's time to put it to bed, and it's time to put the Matrix to bed. What a slog of a film. Number 8. Venom. Let There Be Carnage. Okay, so I understand that these movies have their own dedicated little fan base, their own kind of cult following, kind of in that so good it's bad camp, or these people that see it as some ironic gay love story, which, okay, fine. If that's what you want, if that's what you see, if that's what makes you happy, you know, fine and dandy. Doesn't bother me in the slightest. But folks, let's not kid ourselves. These are still terrible movies. Dull as dishwater. Tom Hardy flailing about like a pantomime villain. Ugly CGI. Ridiculous physics. And poor multiple-time Oscar nominee Michelle Williams being trapped in this. Michelle, if you're listening, first of all, thanks for tuning in. I know you have your choice of low-rated internet movie critics. I'm glad you chose me. But, kiddo, you gotta get out of there. You're better than this. I'm sure Marvel will hire you for something. I personally would pay good money to see you and Hugh Jackman as the Invisible Woman and Mr. Fantastic. So, make that happen. But you deserve better than this. And what makes it all worse is that thanks to one of the worst end credit sequence in Marvel Cinematic Universe history, this ugly, stupid shit film and its franchise are now inexplicably connected to the ongoing Marvel Cinematic Universe like a cancerous mole hanging off of its nutsack. Much in the same way the prequel trilogy and the sequel trilogy both cling to the once respectable form of the Star Wars trilogy. Number 7. Space Jam: A New Legacy. Look, I am unapologetically a 90s kid. And I will, without irony and without cynicism, defend the bold-faced stupidness that seemed to radiate off of that ridiculous decade I so lovingly call home. But I'm not going to sit here and try to sell you a bill of goods and say that the original Space Jam was some misunderstood classic. It was a different picture. It was a unique picture. It had a fun energy, but it wasn't perfect. But what it was enjoyable and surprisingly fresh, more so than I think you really could have expected from a basketball player acting and a whole premise based off a commercial. So what do we get from the long-awaited sequel? We get more of a commercial than the movie that was based on a commercial. And what was this commercial selling? 2 things. Number 1, it was trying to sell us LeBron James, which I don't believe he really needs to be sold. People know LeBron James. But it sure wanted to make us aware that he is the greatest human being that ever lived. At least in the original Space Jam, the entire point of that, the entire joke, is that Michael Jordan, one of the most egotistical people on the planet, but I think that bears noting because the whole joke of it is that in this movie, he sucks at everything that's not basketball. That's the whole joke. He retired to go play baseball, which he did in real life, and sucks at it and is trying to figure out who he is without basketball. At least that movie had the guts to say, yeah, this guy isn't good at something. The most this movie has the balls to say he's not good at, aside from being a father, is that he keeps changing teams because Lord knows he's the only professional athlete in the world to ever play for multiple teams. So it's trying to sell us LeBron James. The other thing it's trying to sell us, Warner Brothers. You gotta feel sorry for Warner Brothers. They are just getting their asses kicked these days, and every time they try to kickstart a new franchise, it just blows up in their face. The slow motion train wreck of mediocrity that has been the DC extended universe. So this movie is trying like fuck to remind you of all the great things that Warner Brothers owns that you loved. Unfortunately, everything that they own that you love has in some way, shape, or form been tainted in the past several years. We own Warner Brothers. Great. So that's good. Remind us of Batman v Superman and those aimless, pointless Wonder Woman movies. We own Harry Potter too. People love Harry Potter, but there's kind of a stigma around that now, folks. And lastly, this is a minor thing, but it does bug me. Look, I understand, I truly do, the need to remove Pepe Le Pew from the lineup. I really do. I'm not arguing that point. He was created in a different time, a different place, and some of his stuff viewed through a modern lens is very inappropriate. Now, this movie could have used the opportunity to maybe revamp the character, redo him a little bit so he's not a sexual predator as he has been depicted. Do a revamp on him of someone who's always looking for love but falling short, kind of like they did 20 fucking years ago with Fifi LePew in Tiny Toons. But I understand that doing that would have taken time, energy, and creativity. So I get why this movie just decided to forego it. I understand the need not to have him in there for, sensitivity reasons. I do. What I do not understand is those same people putting the motherfucking Clockwork Orange guys visibly in the background of the fucking basketball game. Number 6. Queen Bees. I don't know what else to say about this one. This is a below average Hallmark movie, and that's saying something, that somehow conned its way into a theatrical release. It is horrific. The writing is horrific. There are brilliant actors involved in this, none of whom play anyone even remotely interesting or fun. And every time it feels like a character is about to do something interesting or fun or complex, that plot point gets breezed over for something that somebody thought was funny. Really, this one should probably be a little lower on the list because, again, it's too forgettable to really hate, but I'm still kicking myself that I suggested Becca and I go see this one during our road trip instead of the 12 Mighty Orphans. Yeah, so, Blech. Number 5. Zack Snyder's Justice League. This is an exercise in self-indulgence. And in self-indulgence in every sense of the word. Now, I have to say that it is good that a director who was fired off a picture for, let's say, shady reasons, got the opportunity to go back and remake the film that they wanted to make. That is a good thing that was able to happen. However, when that director notoriously does not have any kind of self-censor to know when they need to pull back or stop doing shit, it becomes a problem. This movie, this fucking almost 4-hour long slog, is everything that is wrong with the DC cinematic universe stretched out to unendurable lengths and thrown up on screen with the pride of a director who believes they have made a masterpiece and the toxic fan base that backs it. Forget Baywatch, this has got to be the first movie ever filmed almost entirely in slow motion, and just like the original, just like Dawn of Justice, just like Man of Steel, it fundamentally does not fucking understand what these characters are supposed to be or why it is important that they have come together. Just a complete waste of 4 hours of your life. And to think there are people who want an even longer cut of this shit. Number 4. The Addams Family 2. This movie is a complete waste of time. A movie made not because anybody had something new to do with it, not because they had a specific story they wanted to tell that they felt would fit these characters. They didn't even want to grow off what little goodwill they had amassed from their first outing. This is just a movie thrown together with the most generic plot loosely stated, that seems to fit the IP, and the most unsympathetic and uninteresting and just unpleasant to be around version of Wednesday Addams that they've ever done. This is a movie that makes you hate the Addams family and everything they are, and I just hope to God that this is finally the last one of these, and that it will eventually be rebooted yet again, and maybe somebody who could do something interesting with these characters will get a hold of it, and we won't have to sit through some ill-fated Addams Family 3. Please, God, don't let that happen. Number 3. Old. God, just fuck M. Night Shyamalan. Just fuck M. Night Shyamalan. How does this man keep making movies? Why do they let him? Like, who does he have blackmail photos on? What does he have on you, movie producers? Why do we let him do this? And why do we, the audience, like an abused spouse, keep going back thinking this time it will be different? This time he won't cheat on us and make a shit film. But he always does. I'm not going to sit here and rattle off everything that is unwatchable about this movie, because you could go watch any number of M. Night Shyamalan films and it's the exact same checklist. It is insulting. It is an insulting film, insulting the audience. And like I've said when Becca and I reviewed it, I firmly believe the biggest twist, the biggest gotcha, is that Shyamalan is fucking with us. He knows he's making bad movies, and he's saying, watch, I'll get their asses in the theater anyway. It's gotta be at this point. He can't be oblivious and still think these are good, can he? Is he that self-deluded? Yes, he is. Yes, he clearly is. Clearly, he still is laboring under the delusion that he is some kind of persecuted genius that the establishment just doesn't understand. However, that being said, I do believe we have to give this movie some credit for one of the major thematic messages that it brings across, and that is that, time goes by so quickly. Life is a very, very quick song. Our time upon this spinning fragment of solar driftwood is forever finite. And as such, we need to learn to grab hold of every moment and value every instant we are allotted, and not waste a single solitary moment of it watching any more goddamn M. Night Shyamalan movies. Number 2, American Traitor. You know what? If I didn't know better, let's do a history lesson real quick. Let's do a history lesson, kids. It's time for story time with Uncle Brandon. Back in the day, we had these things called direct-to-video movies. These were cheap films that were spat out in an instant and then released to home video just to make a couple quick bucks. Oftentimes, they were rip-offs of popular movies that were in theaters at the time. Now, you children these days probably don't know anything about this. You're used to streaming services and Netflix and Hulu originals and, Disney Plus originals that are still expected to adhere to some level of quality. Saying something is going direct to a non-theatrical release is no longer, supposedly, a comment on its overall quality. In fact, some of those are in some ways better than the films that do get released to theaters, as we will see when I get to my best list. This film, however, does not live up to that. If it were not for the inexplicable appearance of Al Pacino, Oscar winner Al Pacino, who I could only assume appeared in this movie because he had somehow garnered a massive gambling debt and needed the money before the mob took his kneecaps, I would swear to you this is a student film. This is a cheap looking movie. It looks like it was shot in a cardboard box. The writing is beyond amateurish. The lead performance, and God bless her, I know that it's her, first real chance at a starring role, and you want to make the best impression you can, but it is a performance so wooden and stilted. I haven't seen anything that wooden and stilted since Pinocchio tried to march in the Mardi Gras parade. And even excusing all of that, I just don't know if making a movie loudly saying that a person who knowingly disseminated fake news in order to prop up a, let's just be kind and call it a fascist regime, because that's what it fucking was, and try to pass them off as the sympathetic victim, I don't know if that's the proper message we should be sending out at the tail end of the Trump era. Just putting that out there, folks. Little tone deaf, if you ask me. And the number one worst movie of 2021 was No Time to Die. I don't think I ever got a chance to really say this. And I feel like now is the moment, because I don't know when I'll get another chance. Hello, my name is Brandon of Drive Home Reviews, and I am a Bondaholic. I love Bond movies. Love them. Fell in love with them in high school and have been a dedicated Bondian. I don't know what you call James Bond fans, but I have been a hardcore Bond fan from that day forward. The day I saw GoldenEye, my eyes opened as I was introduced to one of the greatest film series of all time. And through the dark days of quarantine in 2020, the thing that kind of shone in the distance is that there was a new Bond film coming out. Now, I had been stung before. Spectre was a dull affair that seemed to take any and all goodwill that had been accumulated through Casino Royale and Skyfall and seemed to strip all of the joy and laughter out of it. But I held on to hope, and I prayed that this time, Daniel Craig's final outing, we would finally see a great Bond movie out of him. Not that he hadn't seen great ones before, but they really had to go a long way to make up for Spectre. And then my girlfriend and I went and saw this, and they had sunk even lower. This thing is a Bond movie in name only, because it bears absolutely no resemblance to anything that makes a Bond movie good, fun, interesting, exciting, or unique. It is a film where all of the color and joy has been sucked out of the franchise from the oversaturated, color-diffused filming techniques to the low-energy performances to that god-awful theme song. And then they went and did the thing that you can never do. They killed James Bond, literally. And in another way, for me, they kind of killed him figuratively as well. I left this movie feeling empty and sad, because not only did this movie taint itself, it tainted the legacy that it was entrusted with. I will still defend Casino Royale. Skyfall. I will still defend Skyfall. And I know I'm alone in this one, I will still defend Quantum of Solace. Yes, not a great movie, but I felt like its hard times were not its fault. There were extenuating circumstances. And I still believe that even though they looked different, they walked different, they talked different, and they sounded different, underneath it, the energy, the fun, the exotic nature of a Bond film was still there, was still powering through. And I thought of Spectre, okay, a rare miss, it happens. This series has been going on for over 50 years. 20 plus movies, you're gonna have a few downers in there. Okay, and I thought maybe they'd overcorrect and go back the other way. And they did not. They did not. Let me tell you something, folks. I bought a VHS copy of Die Another Day. And then I bought a DVD copy of Die Another Day. And then I bought a Blu-ray copy of Die Another Day. I know it was an antiquated system even then, but when I first started Drive Home Reviews, the way I used to rate the movies before I started doing the grades was the question of, would I buy this on DVD? Would I add this to my collection? And with a Bond movie, it seemed like that question was automatic, regardless of its quality. It was a Bond movie, and there's usually still something of value to be found in that name. But folks, let me tell you, and I know for some people this doesn't mean anything anyway, but to me it still is the mark of quality. Let me tell you, I cannot fathom a situation where I would want to own this movie. I cannot picture a reason why I must have this. Even in some bizarre completist desire that you have to have all of them. I just don't feel there is ever a reason to look at this movie ever again. Even, I said that to somebody, said, well, what if you do a Bond marathon? If I do a Bond marathon, I'm doing a marathon of the good movies. I'm not going to subject myself to this ever again. And, I hear all these people, now that this is come and gone, there are all these people online saying, well, how do you fix James Bond? You don't need to fix James Bond. That's what got us into this problem in the first place. Bond doesn't need to be fixed. You need to put him back the way he was. All I can say is, when they inevitably reboot this series, because they're going to, it may take them a little while. They may need to let the stink of this wear off for a bit. They're going to need to do a massive course correction. Let's not forget, that's how this whole series started in the first place. Die Another Day went too far in the other direction, and of course, we were living in the post 9/11 world. Batman Begins had just happened, and the producers thought, well, we need to gritty Bond up a bit. They had to do an overcorrection. And it worked briefly. Casino Royale was a great movie. And again, Skyfall was a great movie. Quantum of Solace was okay-ish. But somewhere along the line, they got so far up their ass with this uber serious, uber realistic, everything has to be connected, I am the author of all your pain bullshit, and forgot what makes a Bond movie great. And for that, I can understand how it happens once. As I said, I was willing to write Spectre off and just say, we went a little too far in the direction. You must know this. Okay, time to course correct and bring it back home. Twice in a row, no. Somebody done fucked up. And whoever that was, and I know that in the movie industry, it's never just one person, but whoever the fuck's fault this was, all I can say to you is shame on you. Shame on you for what you did to James Bond. You did to James Bond what George Lucas did to Indiana Jones. Shame on you. So there you have it. For those reasons and many more, that is why, and God, it kills me to say that. It gives me a pain in my heart to say this. No Time to Die was the worst movie of 2021. Okay. So, that being said, that being done, the cathartic nature of the worst list is now behind us. We have looked back on the year that was, seen the mistakes that we have made, and are now able to move forward better people. We are ready to embrace what was good about the year and how it helped us. So that is what we will be doing. But before we get to the best, we got to look at the rest. So join me next time for the top 10 meh films of 2021. So thank you for joining me. And as always, drive safe, and I will see you at the movies.